Okay, so hi. It's so nice to see you. This is kind of a beautiful little crew of most of you know each other. It's good to see you. Um, I just want to start by saying that there were some people that were going to join us, and I just want to acknowledge what's going on in the Middle East because this is horrifying and terrible, and there's so much going on in the world right now, and having another event like this after the last couple of years is so devastating. So I know that some people are not here tonight and they may watch this at a later time. And I just want to let them know that our prayers, our thoughts are with them and everyone who's suffering after this most recent horrible event. Okay, so I am excited. I want to just sort of I spoke to some of you last week, and I don't know if some people may have watched. I have put this up on YouTube, and I will continue to do that. But I mentioned that I'm going to alternate with weeks where I'm just here doing my thing, and then some other weeks where I will invite some people on. So this week, the first one of the month will always be just me speaking, and then the second one of the month will be when I bring somebody on. So next week I'll have somebody with me. But for tonight, I wanted to just address this whole concept of the problems that we face as coaches. And rather than going about it, and each one of these, of course, could be its own little masterclass, right? Its own little sort of discussion in terms of like the things that we get hung up on. But I thought it would also be really relevant and really useful to be able to get people to like just sort of to have an overview of the things that get us caught up so that we could see the patterns of all these different ways that we can actually really address the different issues that I think a lot of us meet when we're doing the work that we do. So I had said, I know there are some people here who are not necessarily professional coaches, who aren't doing this as their primary source of making a living. And anyone who may be watching this later, coaching, of course, is not just what we do. We're not talking about just being a professional paid coach. We're talking about all the different areas in life when you become a coach, right? So if you have children, if you teach in any capacity, if you have peers, if you have coworkers, basically any situation in your life where you're seeking to have influence, not control, right? If you're seeking control in some area of life, then that's probably the number one thing you want to, stop. But if you're seeking influence, you're likely just doing the things that we all do when we have a good intention for somebody else, right? So I want to be able to influence my kids to be able to make good choices about the things that they're going to do in their life. And that takes a toll. That really does, call to play a lot of these things that we're going to be talking about tonight. So it doesn't matter what capacity or what type of coaching you find yourself doing. This hopefully is going to be a neat little thing that will allow you to look at the patterns. So just before I start, I want to mention the retreat as well. So we finally have Catherine Davies and myself have got the retreat all set up for November 30th to December 3rd. It's in the Blue Mountain area in Ontario. So for those of you that know Canada and Ontario, it's about 2 hours from here. So it might be 2.5 or something from Toronto. I'm not sure. But this is going to be a really, really, really good retreat. We have a very good sense of what we're creating in terms of what we're actually offering. So it's a Thursday night arrival. We knew that it would be difficult for people to be able to take off more than that, but we've designed it now so that if you are working, the day you need off is the Friday. You would arrive Thursday evening. We're going to have an option for people that do actually want to come Thursday during the day to the Scandinavian spa. We're going to have like an additional option to be able to do that. But the retreat itself will begin Thursday evening. We're going to have a soiree and a dinner on Thursday, and then we're going to lead right into the retreat, which will be Friday, Saturday, and half of Sunday. And it's really about igniting your own sense of inner power. So, for fear of overuse of sort of empowerment and power and, that whole personal power concept, we're going to approach it, of course, the way that we approach it through alignment and transformation. And so it's designed specifically for women who are working, who are really, really feeling as though they have the experience they need to be able to have some certainty around what they want to do in the world, who they want to be in the world. This is not the kind of retreat where you're going to come and relax and get inspired and then go home and not much has changed. We've designed it to be a really dynamic coaching experience with all of the indulgences of a resort. So we're bringing a couple of people in, but it is going to be a matter of recognizing your own sources of peace, your own sources of motivation, your own validation, realigning all those things, and getting a very, very tangible takeaway to be able to bring back into your life. So if you guys know anyone, I know, for many of you, this probably, well, I don't know, who knows, maybe possible, may not. But if you know anyone who is new to this type of work, right, who may really, really benefit from some of the more basic foundational ideas of like rewiring the unconscious mind and tapping into the unconscious mind to explore beliefs and to see themselves from that perspective, please send them our way. We will make sure to be very, very accommodating to the people that you send to us. And we've got lots of neat things in store. It also, anyone who signs up before October 30th, yes, October 30th, will also receive free coaching session prior to the retreat. Again, so just let us know if you have anyone that you think may be interested in this, or obviously you yourselves, then that would be fantastic. Okay, so tonight, coaching problems. The very first thing that I wanted to put out there is please put into the chat if you have specific things that you want to bring to this group, that you want to ask me or just sort of put out to the general group, stuff that you've noticed. Or as we're talking about things, if you've got solutions or just perspectives or whatever you want to share, please go ahead and do that. Either, go ahead and, talk or put it into the chat. I will try and keep my eye on it as well. So I have all sorts of, I've through my own coaching, of course, with coaches. Oh no, now I can't see you. Hang on. There we go. Okay. I have lots that I'm just going to address. And then I also have left some time for you guys. So the first one is just this basic, I can't get enough clients, right? So I think probably 9 out of 10 coaches that I have coached when I'm coaching coaches, the biggest issue is how do I get clients? How do I get them in the door? And we're not really going to address that because I'm not a marketing person. I don't really know how to do that. Larissa's here. There's some other people here who are probably much better suited to answer questions like that in terms of like just, using all the things and the pieces. But what I will say is that no matter what, I've been doing this a long time now, and the results are what matter. And the results meaning when you get really, really good with your clients, if you get a sense of accomplishment with your clients, if you're getting fulfilled by the work that you're doing, if you're getting really positive feedback, if you're creating a community, and not like this kind of community, because you may not be choosing to kind of put yourself in trainer or coaching the coach's role. You may just be working one-on-one, but there's still a sense of community around the work that you're doing. Any of those things, this is the stuff that will keep you in business. And I don't mean to say that it's going to translate immediately into like, if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to make, 6 figures and all that kind of stuff. What I mean is that if I have yet to meet a coach who has gotten really, really, really good results with a number of clients, who's stuck to it, who hasn't been able to turn it into making a living if that's what they choose to do. I think the one thing that gets in the way, of course, is if you don't have the means, like if you actually kind of run out of money, like if you have started coaching, you run out of money and you don't have, like there's a time delay, there's a gap there. My best possible advice is do whatever you have to do. Don't stop coaching though. I feel like I'm now qualified being in the position that I have watched for many, many years as good coaches and not good coaches have gone through the process of trying to become coaches. And the good ones persist. And if you have to take a job waiting tables or doing whatever you have to do, going back to some career, go do it. Like if you can manage to keep a couple of clients on the side as you're doing that and you continue to get really, really, really good results, then you just sort of shift your, how it's going to work, right? So you decide that 6 months from now, you're going to, work this much less and bring on this much more. But I think that that's a really, really tough pill for people to swallow when they realize that they're not making the money that they need to make with coaching, but they're getting the results that they want to get. And so I just feel like that is an important piece. Wherever you have to go to get permission for yourself to make your money be separate from what you're doing, with the absolute faith and trust that this is going to, if you continue to get good results and really focus on what you're doing with your clients, you're going to be able to make this your life's work if that's what you feel like you want to do. So leaving that one aside, let's work now on the problems that we face as coaches when we are doing the work. Okay, so put aside the marketing, put aside the money piece. Now, just in terms of like the actual results. So probably the primary thing is confidence and the beliefs. So we're all pretty much all NLP trained here. And what that means is we have an understanding that our beliefs, yes, yes, yeah. Beautiful, Larissa. Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who can make testament to the fact that they have been able to sort of merge, and while they carry one career, build another, and allow that to happen organically. So the belief around confidence. So just believing that you're a good enough coach. And I think the thing I run into more than anything else is coaches calling me and saying, I feel like this area of my life is so unsuccessful by my own measure that I don't know if I'm qualified to be able to help others. And we're talking about like the main areas of life, right? Like either it's financial or it's your relationship or it's your actual success at work or it's parenting or it's your own birth family, right? It's the stuff that you never sorted out with your own siblings or your own parents or whatever the case may be. Or it could be something like organization, time management, like those sorts of things. Or it could be your own discipline, right? A lot of people really, it's only when they get in the depths of coaching with me that they'll finally admit that like, I don't even meditate in the morning, or I can't meditate, or I barely get out of bed and I'm catching up all day, like those sorts of things where they're not actually following what they preach. And so there's this imposter syndrome that happens. There's a whole slew of things where people are sort of caving under the pressure of like, if people saw the backside of my life, they might question my ability to coach. And the there's a balance here, right? There's a threshold. I do think that sometimes people are coaching in areas they shouldn't yet be coaching in. So I do think that if you're dealing with, say, I don't know, if you're putting yourself out there as a business coach and you really haven't had any business success yet yourself, you probably shouldn't be coaching in that area. Like I would say that is an absolute truth. I don't think that it's helpful to encourage people and say like, it doesn't matter if you're a great coach, and there are the metaphors absolutely of like, the gymnastics coaches can't do what the greatest gymnasts do, right? Like we all know that probably Simone, what's her name? Simone Bayou. She probably doesn't have a coach whoever was able to do what she is able to do, right? Seeing as nobody really has been or is. But guaranteed her coach has experienced success as a gymnast, right? Like chances are there has been enough experience that can contribute to that type of coaching. So it is true that Usain Bolt's coach can't run as fast as him. However, guaranteed that's an athlete. Guaranteed that's somebody who knows what it's like to have all of those those qualities and those things. And then of course the job of the coach is to have that objective perspective. So I think if you can really make a distinction, and I would say the practical step in this is write down the different aspects of your coaching that you want to be able to address, and then write down your own life in the categories of like, here's where my big successes are. I've been very successful. Maybe you've got like a relationship that is fantastic. Maybe you've got like this really beautiful, stable, loving relationship. Write that down in your big success, box of things, or you're a super organized person, or you're, whatever the case may be. And then underneath that, you need to have a box of like things that I'm dedicated to and working on. And then you've got to have a box of like things that I never expect to excel in myself. Like things that I genuinely don't ever think that I'm going to pay enough attention to or give enough effort toward to become an expert at. And those are the ones that I would leave alone. Like those are the ones that you probably, and you can get really, really specific with that, or you can stay a little bit more vague, right? So I'm going to write down that like, I don't ever want to be a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur. That is not something that I am ever going to spend time putting energy into or trying to become. I would like to become like a very abundant entrepreneur. Like I would like to be very like, whatever measure that is. I'd like to be successful. I'd like to have impact. I can write all of these other things that I'm working on and that I've been successful with. But if somebody comes to me and says, hey, this is specifically what I'm looking to do, and it happens to be in something that just like I don't pay attention to, that is something I probably want to leave alone. Now you're going to have exceptions, right? If I happen to be working with an opera singer right now, it is true that I will likely never become an opera singer, which doesn't disqualify me now from working with my opera singer. If she came to me and said like, Tara, I really want to learn to sing like high C's and have a better tone quality, then I best pass her on, right? But if she's coming to me and saying like, I need to steady these nerves, I need to believe in myself more, I need to know that I can go to these auditions and, all that kind of stuff, then I certainly am. I can check my boxes of like, have I been able to successfully in my own life overcome fear? Have I been able to ground myself, anchor myself, steady my nerves, and move forward? Absolutely, I have. Absolutely, I have. And do I intend to continue to pay attention in that area and grow in that area and become better in that area? Yeah, for sure. Now, the important part, though, is to make sure that that relationship is really clear with my client, right? It's very important that I'm saying to them, here's the thing. So this is, sort of basics of coaching 101, but important to remember when you've been coaching for a while and you kind of flow organically into your sessions, to remember that you have really set the expectations for yourself so that you remember where your lane is, where you're coaching, and for your client, so that they also have a really, really good understanding of what you are coaching them toward and what you are not coaching them toward, right? So that they can make sure that they can get the proper support that they need in those areas. And one of the things that I've learned really, really profoundly over the years is the more you can emphasize what you're not coaching them in, allows none of that muddling to happen, right? When somebody says to me that they want to feel better, they want to feel more confident, they want to do all this stuff in their coaching, it is very important that I am saying to them, I am not coaching you in how to make more money coaching. I'm coaching you in how to become a much more confident coach who has really strong boundaries and gets good results. Now, if what you really need to focus on is the money aspect of your coaching, please make sure that you find somebody who is specifically working in that area of your life, right? So that you're making things really, really clear with your clients about where you're coaching and where you're not coaching. And for yourself, it will save you just so much time and get you so much better results. So I feel like that is sort of rudimentary, but very, very important to just continually remind yourself of this sort of what I do and what I don't do in terms of your own clients and the results that you're going to get for them. And then you want to check your current state and check the trajectory that you're on. So this is a really, really useful tool. It's sort of like a little mashup. So those of you that have been, that have been here for a little while and have worked with me in the past, You know that I'm a big fan of James Clear, so Atomic Habits. So now this is about like, forget about your goals in terms of measurement. Not that you don't want to set goals, just that you don't want to measure yourself and your own success based on those goals. You want to instead look at the trajectory always, right? What is the trajectory that you're on? If you continue to do what you've been doing for the last 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, whatever, whatever you want to measure there. If I continue to do this energetically, practically, tangibly, where is that going to put me 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks from now? Right. And that's where you measure your success. So James Clear and the Atomic Habits is so important in everything we're going to talk about. Marshall Goldsmith, because he is the guy that really, really props up the Did I Do My Best card, the activity card. And it is absolutely true. And even while as NLP practitioners, we know that time doesn't really have anything to do with changing beliefs. Time is irrelevant. You can absolutely go from like a belief that you have had for 35 years to having a different belief in no time. It can happen like that. The truth, though, is you're going to need habits that support the new belief. And habits don't happen overnight. Habits can't happen overnight. So while the belief we can change outside of time, and it is regardless of time, the habits do need to be repeated over time. And sadly, one of the things that I think we kind of fall into a little bit when we're working with the unconscious mind and NLP is that we are really good at changing things that just kind of like poof, have this wonderful magic effect of making you feel different, but you're still a human being who has a human body that is mechanical. You still have a very mechanical and quantum brain. You still have all of these human sort of, problems of habits become habits. And so you want to make sure that every time you have a belief change, you set yourself up to take a moment to be able to set up the trajectory of the habits that are going to support the change of beliefs. And Marshall Goldsmith is the one who says, like, I don't care who you are. You can be like the biggest, baddest CEO who has had nothing but success, just like out of every orifice of their being. You still would benefit from having that activity card that says, did I do my best to every single day of your life? And anyone, and I really, 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 really believe this to the core of my being, the most successful people are the people who still adhere to this, who still believe in the idea of having that 1 minute accountability at the end of the day, just to check in and say, did I do my best to hold my boundaries today? Did I do my best to laugh today? Did I do my best to ask for feedback today? Did I do my best to, go to bed the right time or whatever the case may be? Those are the people that are going to create the habits and create the trajectory that's going to create success for themselves and success in their work. So I would say, and then there's one more book, 400 Weeks, and I forget the guy's name. Somebody can put it in the chat because some of you know. 400 Weeks is the book that basically says, in a nutshell, you're never going to get it all done. You have 4,000 weeks. Sorry, not 400. That's a short life. We have about 4,000 weeks to live on average. And so wasting one of those weeks seems silly. And the whole message of this book is this beautiful sense of like, you're going to go to bed every day of your whole life, not quite having gotten done what you think you should have gotten done in that day. And you can either stress yourself out about it or you can accept it. And this whole concept of like, you have got to accept that you are going to go to your grave without having seen every single country that you wish you could have seen and not been on every beach that you've yearned to be on. And you're not going to write every book you wish you wrote. And you're not going to say every word that you wish you'd express, like all of those things. And that has to be okay, because we can just like strangle ourselves with this, like, I can't get it done. And so this as a practice of like, you can focus on what you did get done today, or you can focus on what you didn't get done today. And again, it's so simple, but that very act of like, at the end of the day, there is something so beautiful about writing down, if you're bothered by it. If you're not, don't add this to your list of things to do. But if you are getting bothered by this sense of like, why am I going to bed constantly feeling like I didn't get enough done, like I didn't get the things done, then take the time, even if you do it on like the audio recorder of your phone or whatever, just take a moment and go, okay, you know what? Sure, I didn't get this and this done. What did I do instead? Because probably you did other valuable things instead. And if you don't know why you did the things that you did, ask yourself the question, why did I do that? Like today, I spent 3 hours cleaning my house. That's what I did get done today. Why did I do that? And if it's throwing you off, if you feel like you're somehow losing time toward your success or your happiness or whatever because you spend too much time cleaning your house, then there you go. It's right there for you. This question of like, what in the world am I doing when I'm doing that? And either you're going to find out that you have some value that you have never fully appreciated, that you can just decide you love about yourself, or you can recognize that there is something that you're doing in your life that you need to shift, right? I have like that idea of beliefs. So there is some sense of, am I dreading the work that I'm supposed to do? What is the belief that is causing you to do all this procrastination, if that's the case? No matter what you come up with, you're going to realize that you do a whole bunch every single day. And if you never, ever, ever have a day where when you say, what did I do today? And the answer is like, I kind of did like fuck all. Sorry, my language. You should have some of those days too. Those are the days where you go, oh, so what I did get then was like rest or learning myself or whatever the case may be, right? Okay. So the big takeaway here is if you're not currently using your Did I Do My Best card, dig it up. I'll put it in the chat here. When we pause, I will put it in the chat. I tried to put it in before, but I think you guys don't get the chat until you're actually logged into the room. So I'll put it back in the room if you don't have it. And I would highly, highly, highly suggest starting one of those up if you're not currently doing one, and just commit to doing it for a month again. And anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking to or referencing, I will put it somewhere on the YouTube channel where you'll be listening to this. If this is after the fact, I will put it down below in the notes somehow. I'll reference to it. I think I can put a PDF there, right? I think so. I don't know. But I'll make sure you have some access to it. And what it is this card that Marshall Goldsmith uses to check where your focus is. Forget about your actions and your behavior. You ask yourself the question, did I do my best to be happy, to live with purpose, to eat well, whatever it is? And you're really measuring the effort around your focus on doing that, not the results. I can probably come up with a reference to where we explain that on one of these videos on the YouTube channel as well. Okay. So here are some, I'm just going to go over the ones that came up most commonly. So this is a sort of a little amalgamation of my own coaching practice and what I found when I went out and started looking for the question, what do coaches struggle most with? Creativity came up a ton, which I love that is one of the things that came up because it's so beautiful and it's so important. And I'll come back to it in a second. But this idea of like your creativity getting locked up, that's a big one. One, of course, is boundaries and compassion. How nice, how not nice, where are the boundaries, all that stuff. Triggers is really easy. I don't even need to come back to it. If you get triggered by your clients, if you get triggered by the issues you're dealing with your clients, go find a coach to work you through those triggers, period. That's all. Honestly, if there's no trigger that I would say like, oh, let that be an indication of like your preferences of what you want to work with or who you want to work with. No, don't do that. If it's a trigger, an actual trigger where you are getting emotionally out of balance, where you can't regulate your own emotional response to something, it means that you need to go get some coaching on that, right? So even if you get like a complete, like a terrible, awful, mean, nasty person who walks into your office and obviously you're not going to choose to coach them, trigger or no trigger, you're not going to choose to coach them because they're rude or they're, whatever the case may be, they're not your client. There's a difference between that and actually getting triggered by it, right? Meaning you can't regulate the emotional response that you have toward it. Your ego and the trickery around your ego, on the other hand, is something that needs to be, there's lots of really cool things you can do. It's always about attachment, right? So as soon as your ego is involved, it's about attachment, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then judgment is one of the big things that came up, which I thought was really interesting. Was and I've met it lots and lots in my own coaching, but it's a difficult one to address because we have trouble with judgment. So we'll talk about that. And then there's a few more. If we have time, we may address perfectionism, going solo. The loneliness of just like working by yourself is a big, big, big one that I almost feel like it's a little bit too big to address here, but it's important to remember that my only advice here, guys, is don't. If you feel lonely because you're solo, don't be solo. Find someone to work with. Just make it a priority. Wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to find somebody who I can collaborate with. Whether that's someone that you actually bring in as like a full-on partner, like you're going to share business with them, you're going to whatever, or if it's somebody like a group that you're going to collaborate with who may be unrelated to your actual business, but they can be like an accountability group or a business group that you something. Just don't work alone. If it's hurting you to work alone, don't do it. And if it is something that you want to do, but you're just struggling because of like skills or because of lack of, whatever it is, then make sure that that's what you're addressing. But if you're just feeling like, I don't want to do this alone another day, then don't do it alone another day. Of course, it's a much bigger conversation. Keeping up with the Joneses, the other coaches, comparison, social media. Again, we could talk for days and eons about it, but I do think that you just got to remember that this whole thing of creativity came up, and the thief of creativity is comparison. That is what steals our creativity, is comparison at that level. And so keeping up with like Uber coaches, I think that's a really, really important thing to remember, that like there are those celebrity coaches, and not even celebrity coaches, but I guess they're called like influencer coaches or whatever, like the people whose names because of Instagram and because of, whatever the case may be. We need to remember that those are like, how you have like your big movie stars and then you have like working actors. You've got, Celine Dion, and then you have singers. Like, I think that we need to just really remember that coaches are super, super successful all over the place that don't have a big social media presence, that don't have hundreds and thousands of people that are lining up to like see what they have to say every day and go to their workshops and all that kind of stuff. There is a world full of successful coaches that I would call like working coaches. And it's really important that you're not confusing your own success with that model of coaching that is shiny and glittery and has lots of followers and all that kind of stuff. The last one is adding too much value, which is worthwhile just jotting down if you're making notes. Adding too much value to your coaching, that you're putting so much into your coaching that you are really not extracting for yourself the results that you want to get, and you're putting too much in. So what I mean is like too many trainings, too many different techniques, too much information in terms of what you're laying on your clients. And I think we really addressed this last time. So if you want to go back to the talk on 2 weeks ago, talking about like, there is definitely much more success for the coach who can stretch themselves with what they have than the coach that has, 25 different trainings behind them and tries to use little bits of everything, because they're really excited about what they can use. Going back to internal representations, so many things can be shifted and changed and get huge results with the really basic foundational tools that you have. So just don't try to, like, so many coaches are just trying to pack their coaching sessions and the things that they offer with so much value that they're killing themselves, they're burning themselves out, and you don't need to. You can be an exceptional coach with probably half of what you think you need. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. I know I'm going at a clip here, but I'm just going to keep going unless you've got questions. Okay, so let's talk about this creativity piece. Creativity is, I think, the greatest gift you have, every single one of you. If you believe that you are not a creative person, please call me and I will do a session with you at no charge. I will take 15 minutes with every one of you. And the only thing that we'll do is you will call me and we will do, I believe I'm not creative. And then we'll go back and we'll find the point when you decided that. And then you'll get the new belief. Of course, I'm creative, because you are creative. You are a human being. Your best gift, your greatest gift is your creativity. You have a heart and you have a mind and you have experience and you have felt 1,000 different things and you've had 1 billion different thoughts, and therefore you are creative. And I think that if we could aliven that, like wake that up almost beyond everything else, and just remember that like you're going to learn something that 10,000 other people learn, right? Like anything else in the world, the reason that it's going to be successful for you is because you're going to bring your own creativity to how you use that tool, right? So each one of us here could guide somebody up onto their timeline, or we could reframe something, right? We could ask somebody the questions like, what if it was a different context? What if you had that same belief? We could all use Byron Katie. We could say to somebody like, is that belief that you just said, is that actually true? Or we could go into saying to somebody, okay, well, you've just explained to me what you don't want. What is it that you do want, right? Like we could reframe these things. We could use all these tools that we've all learned. And the thing that is going to make you and your client have a breakthrough is going to be the creativity that you bring to it, whether that's like the tone of your voice or literally the thoughts that you have around like where you think they may be going. If you can rename all of that creativity so that you can actually say to yourself before you go into a coaching session, just make the absolute commitment that like for the next 60 minutes or 90 minutes or however long you spend with your client, you say to yourself, I'm going to go into this session with my client. I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to relate to them. I'm going to use the tools that I'm trained with. And most of all, I am going to trust my own creativity in the process of helping them change or helping them shift or helping them heal or feel better or whatever the case is. If that was something that you said to yourself and you believed through and through, I guarantee it would amplify just like the dynamic of your coaching. And I'm serious. You can take me up on that. Anyone, just go to my website, book a free consult with me. I don't care if I've worked with you 1,000 times and you know you're accustomed to booking sessions. Just book the consult, and I would happily run that belief with everyone. The other thing is to use the hard. So I just saw this really beautiful, you might have seen it, maybe it's like viral, I don't know, but I just saw it for the first time on like, you know, one of those Instagram or something. But it was an actor, and I even forget who it is, but he talks about when he first learned to act, and he was doing a scene and something messed up. There was a chair that was supposed to be thrown in this scene and it got lodged. So he was supposed to like walk in, but the chair was now in the way. So he got all fuddled or whatever. And the teacher that he was working with said, yeah, there's now a chair in the way of where you were supposed to walk. Use the difficult. So if it's a comedy you're doing, make it funny. Like climb over the chair. Use the funny to enhance what you're doing. If you're in a drama, pick up the chair and throw it, or start to cry because it's in your way. Like use the difficult for what the intention of using it is. And I just felt like it was so apt for what I'm always trying to do with the coaches that I work with, which is like, I know that this is very, very simple and probably overused, but if you can look at your clients' issues like that, like use the difficult. So when we're all going to face clients who sit down and present something to us that we honestly feel like for a second, we don't know how we can help them. Right? We don't know how they're going to deal with whatever it is that they have to deal with, or where is the best place to start or whatever. And as soon as you notice that, as soon as you notice inside yourself that you've just run into a difficult, if you could remember to immediately respond to the difficult with like, okay, use the difficult. And you guys, again, as NLP trained coaches, the beauty, the bonus we have is that we are never, ever, ever, ever trying to offer a solution, right? The very first principle you got to go back to is you don't need to know the answer. Remember, you don't need to actually even begin to imagine how they could solve their problem. You just need to be able to guide them into a place where they can solve their own problem. And as a coach, too often we forget that, and the reason it feels difficult to us is because we're trying to solve their problems. We're trying to come up with like wisdom to offer or solutions to offer, which again, you've kind of lost the plot if you're coming up with solutions for your clients, right? So we actually have the easiest job in the world to be able to say, like, inside your head, you're like, fuck, I don't know. Like, I honestly cannot imagine how you're going to get out of this situation. And then you get to go, oh, right, but I don't need to. Because the only way that you're going to get out of this situation is that you're going to get out of this situation somehow. And your job is just to go, you know what I'm going to have you do? I'm going to have you close your eyes. And I want you just to imagine as if you did know, as if you knew how to get out of this situation. What do you think would be the most important thing for you to be able to do the next time you're faced with it? And your client's going to go, I just need to be able to stay calm. Cool. Can you do that? No. Perfect. You know what you know how to do as a coach? Help them believe that they can stay calm in this situation. You know what I mean? You're not trying to figure out how they're going to stay calm, or, you know, how. You're just there to guide them so that they can go back in. And so every time you run into that difficult, you remember that you're just using it. You're just using that difficult to allow them to be able to figure out their own solution. And it takes about 1,000 pounds. I can't tell you how often I run into that, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to approach this? How do I know, like, where's the starting point? When did this, wait a second. What's the problem again? Okay, close your eyes. And we have the ability to guide them to where that solution is going to be. So I just think that this whole element of creativity is one that if you've lost it, if you have momentarily in your career lost your sense of creativity, then this is a perfect time to remember that that is your greatest gift. There's the other kind of stuff, right? Like there's using CT, using core transformation on the part of you that, you know, feels uncreative or feels like you're constantly backing into skill instead of creativity, all that kind of stuff. Let's move on to boundaries, compassion, nice. I think that this probably doesn't require much more than if you know your boundaries, they're very easy to hold. When you don't know your boundaries, they're very difficult to hold. So I think that, you know, between you guys, some of you know each other well and not well. If this is becoming an issue for you where you feel like you're, I mean, a lot of you know me well enough to know that, like, I could probably define the first 5 years of my coaching as just like one great long violation of my boundaries. Just for like 5 years straight. It was just sort of like, I didn't know how to hold boundaries. I had to really work through, like, what is the difference between compassion and having a boundary, because that was so confusing. And I know that I work with so many of myself out there where that sense of like, but I want to help, but I want to help, but I want to help no matter what, I want to help. So the obviously, you know, you have a million great resources in terms of finding boundaries. What isn't out there, so there's people like Brene Brown who speak to it so well. I'm never going to explain it better than she's going to explain it, in terms of like, you can offer greater compassion when you stay within your boundaries, period. Right? So when I stopped accommodating everybody's schedules and coaching on weekends and coaching on evenings when my kids had stuff that I wanted to be doing with them, and when I stopped like saying yes to the people that were pushing me around and all that kind of stuff, I became a much more compassionate coach, because when I say yes, it is an absolute yes. If I say to you, yes, I have that time available for you, it means that I do. And in order to avoid getting confused with your boundaries, you legitimately just have to set them, right? I no longer do X, Y, and Z. And it's so easy to sit down and go, okay, when are the 10 times this week when I started to feel resentful toward a client? when I was not compassionate toward my family. I don't know, whoever it is that you're in a coaching relationship with. When did I not show up well? Like just the questions of like, when did I not show up exactly as I wanted to show up? What boundary was I violating? And course correct. And then make yourself that list and put it up like wherever you work. My list of boundaries had to be beside my computer for like 2 years. I don't coach on weekends. No, I don't coach on Sunday. Like I literally had to practice it, right? So whatever these things are, I don't coach for free. I don't, all of these things, except when I do. And when I do, like that offer I just said to you guys, honestly, if you want to call me and just do that one belief, I am a creative human being, I mean that with my whole heart. I would love to help anybody out there for 15 minutes to get that belief right inside. And I don't want your money for it. It's not about that. It is, though, very, very supportive of who I am and what I'm doing. And it will contribute financially, soul-based, heartfelt, like in all of the ways to me, because I'm really, really invested in being involved in your success. And so all of those things, the full circle of it all. So just make sure that when you're setting your boundaries, that you have them written down, that you practice them. It's so hokey, but practice them with like the people in your life, actually saying them out loud, like literally role playing. It's so useful. It's so useful to actually do that. Like Alan has done it with me where I'm like, I practice saying, no, actually, I don't work on Friday nights. And then he would like role play doing the like, but it's the only night I have free. And then he plays the client who's like, it's the only night I have. And you came so highly recommended. And I know that you can help me. And I just can't. There's no other way. I'm on the road. And I would literally practice like, well, I still don't coach on Friday nights. And as soon as you can figure that out, as soon as you can make it work, there are other times when I'm really, really flexible, right? Like and it helped so much to have role played that so that when I got in those situations, I'm not grappling for words for how to deal with this situation. So role playing, as much as I despise it in terms of like just as a function of role playing is awkward. If you hate it like me, do it with the people that you can do it with, that you're closest with. If you're someone who can just like reach out to one of your fellow coaches and say, okay, here's 3 boundaries. Can we spend 10 minutes and you role play someone who's trying to get me to violate one of my boundaries for me and let me act it out? You cannot believe how much benefit you would get from doing that. Remaining objective. So I just want to say, in terms of compassion and niceness, the golden rule, I think, is, can you remain objective? So if you feel like you're kind of overflowing with too much compassion, like you're feeling so much, like you're starting to feel what your client feels, you're buying into their problems, you're buying into their pain, you're buying into any of their own sort of like being at effect stuff, through compassion, is you just ask yourself the question, am I and can I be objective right now if I choose? So you may not choose to, right? I may choose to no longer be objective in a moment. Like if a woman walks in my office and her husband has just committed suicide last week, I may choose to throw all objectivity away. Like I might sit with her and just let her cry for 10 minutes if she needs to, or 15 minutes. And I might choose to completely move into full compassion and just like pure, I don't know, love and whatever else. But if I ask myself the question, could I be objective right now? If I choose to, can I be objective? You just need to be able to answer yes to that question, can I? You don't have to do it. But if that woman comes in the next day and every time she starts to cry, I can't handle it. Like I can't stand the idea of suggesting to her that it's time to move to a place where she can cook for herself again, or whatever the case may be, like whatever the objective place for me as a coach to come in and start supporting her. I need to be able to do that when I choose to do that. Now you know that you've got the right balance between compassion and objectivity. So you just, if you're confused between like, did I have the right amount of like compassion and objectivity? Did I stay in my role and my job as coach, who is not best friend, who is not sister, who is not all the other people in their life that should just be wrapping their arms around them right now and offering support? Am I staying in my role? It's just that question of, could I, if I chose, be objective right now in this circumstance? And then trust that you'll know the difference. You will know when to just offer pure compassion and when to step into your objectivity and become the coach. And so we'll leave that there. Okay, I'm aware of the time. It's 8:25. I'm going to talk about this ego trickery because it's very, very important, I think, for us as coaches. We suffer from our egos as much as everybody else in the world. And I think that this trickery that I'm referring to, that I notice in my clients so much, like my coaching clients, when I'm coaching coaches, is the ego stuff shows up when it tricks you into being anything other than ego. So the takeaway that I like, the what I have witnessed in terms of people getting more success by dealing with their ego is to sever the attachment to whatever the ego is attached to. So this is, sort of the Buddhist idea of like anything that you are attached to causes suffering, right? As soon as you are attached to an outcome, it means then that without the outcome, without the attachment, you're going to hurt. You're going to feel pain. You're going to feel some form of suffering. So based on that principle, again, you can always look at your own ego and ask yourself the question, is my ego tricking me right now into this perspective that I have, or this feeling that I have, or this thought that I have, or, whatever the case may be? Is it my ego? Or is it coming from some other authentic place, which still might be your ego, but it's not tricking you then? So I think that we all need to acknowledge that like a healthy ego is likely to live inside every one of us until the day we die, because it is, nobody here listening to me likely is going to go the path of like a fully enlightened human being. Not now anyway. You all may at the end of your life, or whatever, but I mean, like, truly that sort of enlightened without ego is probably not something that any of us at this point in our journey are necessarily sort of even attempting to become, because that would mean you'd have to kind of let go of everything, right? You'd just let go of everything. So each of us has an ego that we need to have a really, really good relationship with. So each of us here has to make sure that we recognize that our ego is going to be an authority in a whole lot of things. Like, you are going to be attached to your loved ones. I mean, unless you're not. But I think most of us can say that, like, we do have priority for like the people that are our parents, our children, our spouses, our close friends, the people that we ourselves have attachment to. That is a healthy way for the ego to exist, right? Like it is very natural and normal for the ego in a very healthy way to kind of prioritize people that they have attachment to. You want to make sure that you're never overriding that, right? That you're never attempting to override that again at this point, unless you are. So if you are trying, if your ego is tricking you into something like the opinion of everyone out there is equal to the opinion of these specific people who I know and who I care about, if you're getting that muddled up, that's trickery of the ego. That's your ego saying, the miscellaneous people out there watching Facebook or like whatever the thing is, that they affect my value, my sense of worth, as much as the person beside me who is saying to me like, hey, Tara, you know what? I'm really not sure about the way that you I don't know, you're running the office right now. I'm not sure everybody feels like, like, I don't know, whatever the complaint may be or the feedback may be. Your ego gets tricked in saying that your value is somehow equal in those two situations, right? So the internet or the whatever web says that I'm great, so I'm great. And I allow myself to feel great because of that. The person I'm working with just said that I wasn't particularly sensitive to them. And I'm going to dismiss that as being somehow less important. Do you know what I mean? This is when the ego starts to mess with you. This is when all of a sudden you're being pushed around and you're allowing your feelings and your value system and all of the things that actually make you feel whole and real and authentic and grounded and valuable and all that kind of stuff, when that starts to get all messed up. And so I just think that in terms of being a coach, we need to be very, very, very brave in terms of how we're allowing ourselves to take feedback in, and where we're allowing our ego to be like strong and loud and authoritative, and where we need to tell our ego to go take a hike, right? So if I allow myself to feel bad because I put a offer out on the internet and only 3 people responded, I need to work on this. I need to go to my coach and I need to say, okay, something's going on. I'm letting my ego trick me into feeling like I am a good coach or a bad coach, that I am a likable coach or not likable coach, or I'm an effective and successful coach or not an effective and successful coach, based on something that is actually completely misrepresenting what it means about me. What it does mean is you might not have good like hashtags or something. It might mean that like your product needs some adjusting, or whatever you're selling isn't fitting the current market, or what, like it might mean all of those things. It might even mean you need to work on like your way of expressing yourself, or like whatever the words you chose, or I don't know. What it doesn't mean is obviously your worth, your value, your capacity, all of that kind of stuff. And so if you can take that at an ego level and bring it, and by the way, same thing with your children, with your, all of the areas of your life, not just your coaching practice. Whereas sometimes we downplay what our ego really needs. Like women who come to me and say, my friends are all telling me that, I don't know, that I've changed because of this thing that I'm committed to or whatever. And they're all acting like I'm not there for them when they don't understand that I have this, blah, 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 blah. Now, here's something your ego should be paying attention to. And I mean that in the truest sense of ego, like the ego being the self, like the things that you were attached to. If those friends mean something to you, and there's a bunch of them saying like, you're not showing up very well right now, you need to pay attention to that. If you've got clients who are saying to you in our one-on-one interactions, I don't feel like you're really hearing me, or I feel like you're bossing me around in a way that isn't helpful to me, or whatever, and you're getting that feedback, now you actually, well, it's okay for your ego to be a little bit wounded. Like that's where, again, you still want to work on it. You still want to make sure you're paying attention. But this is like a really healthy way that you don't want to dismiss, right? Because you do want that attachment. You actually do want your clients to be coming to you and saying things like, you know what, when I work with you, I feel so heard. I feel like you actually take the time to like ask me questions that nobody else asks me. I feel like you actually like inspire me to trust myself in a way, like the things that you want to get as feedback are things that for real, your ego should be attached to, should feel good about itself about, right? And this isn't your ego like tricking you. This isn't the kind of thing where you want to go and have a belief of like, I believe in myself so much that I'm not going to listen to any of this feedback. I'm only going to, I'm going to stay devoted. That's what you do if you're selling like a something, an invention Like nobody understands yet the value of it, and you need to keep pursuing through all that rejection. This is not something that you want to ignore at an ego level if it's coming to you in a way where it can be really, really productive and helpful. So I think that this idea, what I'm offering to you is this idea of getting the relationship with your own ego, the point of pride you have in your life, get it right. Allow yourself to feel up or down based on the feedback you're getting. Let your ego actually guide you to like, I think I'm going to show up tonight, even though I feel like shit, because I committed to this. And I really, really want people to see me as someone who is reliable, someone that they can count on. And if somebody says to you, that's just your ego talking, yeah, hell yeah. It's exactly what it is. It's also my heart. It's also my, you can name 1,000 other parts, but it's your ego too. I do want people to say those things about me. I want those people to think those things about me. And those are real, true, good attachments that, again, until you choose that you don't want them anymore and you're prepared to, give up all the attachment in your life, you want to nurture those in the right way. So, I don't know. I leave that with you. It is something that I work out with a lot of people with a lot of success, because you finally get permission to be like, oh, I'm allowed to like want to have this acknowledgement or this recognition. Yeah, you are. In fact, it's going to make you a better coach for it. It's going to make you a better person for it. It's going to make you a better parent for it. Just find that threshold, right? Don't generalize. Just let it be very, very specific. Let your ego be specific. Okay, I'm not going to go into any more because it is 8:36, and maybe this is a like part 2. Maybe this is a the first one in November. Maybe we continue with these sorts of things. But I will let you guys ask me questions. Yes, Sally.
So it sounds like keeping one's ego in check, those activity cards that you're talking about can be a real support system then, right?
Yes. Yes.
And it can be a real personal learning tool.
Yeah. If you could kind of like spend some time, if you wanted to, pour yourself a glass of wine, sit down and, turn music on and do all of the atmospheric things that actually lend itself to that kind of like pouring of yourself, and get as honest as you can be with yourself and just say like, first of all, how do I define my ego? And then where do I want to finally give my ego full permission to stay attached to the things that I'm okay with it being attached to, that I think will make my life better and happier if I stay attached to? And where am I probably attached to some things that are making me unhappy because I'm attached to them? And if you could come out with those 2 lists, and then, yeah, you write your did I do my best cards with like, did I do my best today to let go of my attachment to the number of likes I got, the shoes that I can't afford and I'm not wearing, the like whatever the things are. And I don't mean to make it sound so trite, because sometimes it's not trite. I want to let go of the attachment to like my kids always being happy. Like, for God's sake, they don't have to think that I am like the world's like happiest rainbow mother. My ego needs to get like a little bit more okay with my kids sometimes being bored or pissed off, or so like there's all sorts of areas here, but you can recognize when it's your ego tricking you into the things that you're attached to. And then all of those, did I do my best to give myself permission to be attached to how much money I made this week? Like, did I let my ego be, is it okay? So yeah, that is a beautiful exercise to do. And the card is the best way to do it, because you want to turn it into habits. Who else has a question before I stop the recording and go on to client stuff? Yeah.
Do you think it's a good idea? You said, as coaches, connecting with other coaches, having conversations with other coaches. sitting down with another coach and talking cases just to get a fresh perspective on things, or maybe an idea or a piece of creativity that maybe you didn't think about.
Yeah. I mean, that's the dream, right? My dream is like we all somehow geographically get together on Saturday mornings and all have brunch, once a month or whatever, and get to share all of that stuff. This forum in a little, in a way is a bit of that, but I think one-on-one, I think if you can make sure, when I said like if you are waking up feeling like you're working alone, stop working alone. And that is true of like the most emotional stuff and the most practical stuff, right? So yeah, I think swapping with other coaches, and everybody needs to have a coach. I do think that is one of the things I would say, absolutely, for sure. Like, you don't need to have a 10-minute morning meditation that you do every day. You can, you know, you can learn from your own stuff, right? Your mess is your message. All of that stuff is true, right? You don't need to make sure that you've never yelled at your parents to help a client not yell at or parents. Kids, don't yell at your parents. um but you can have your own little messes that you're working through. I don't think it's okay to be a coach without a coach. i just I just think it's a mistake. I just think that you are now actually sort of begging for, like, you need that objective view on yourself. You cannot be a good enough coach yourself to somehow magically have an outside perspective on yourself. You just can't, right? Like, you can't. It's just the physics of the thing. You can't hear, anyway. So yeah, I do think that, like, coaches should have coaches, and a lot of the coaching that you're going to get from the coach that you choose to be your coach is actually just going to be discussion, right? Some of it may be closing your eyes, releasing beliefs, dealing with triggers, changing IRs, dealing with core transformations, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of it with your own coach, I would say that if you are a coach and you have a coach that you regularly see, I would always say, like, at least once a month, or actually, and at most, unless you're going through something and you need to see them more often. You don't want someone you're seeing every, unless it's a specific thing. But if you've got like a monthly coaching session, probably make it a longer one, right? Make it like a 2-hour coaching session so that you have the time to just sit there with your coach and be like, hey, here's some of the stuff. And you guys can just have conversations about your shared experiences and stuff, right? Yeah, I think that's so valuable. And then hopefully you also have, friends who are coaches that you're just having those conversations. Answer the phone when another coach calls you. I actually write this one down sometimes. Answer your phone, Tara. When it's other coaches, answer your phone. um, but truly, that sort of thing. Cool. Okay, if there's nothing else along this topic, I'm gonna open it up to like client stuff that we can talk about off record.